It's great to have you here, Congressman Garcia. Previously, Congressman Denham shared his personal story, why this was something that he's personally invested in. I wonder if you could do the same for viewers. Why do you care about this issue?
Well, I'm the son of immigrants, right? My parents came here. My father was 16 when he arrived in the United States. He was fleeing communism. His father had died under house arrest in Cuba. My grandmother and he were displaced. This great country offered him refuge. She had been a telephone operator in Cuba and a housewife. My father was just a young man who had just barely finished high school when he came. I think it was almost towards the end of his 17 when he came. And this country offered him an opportunity. And with that opportunity, he raised a family, educated us, took care of her, took care of my mom and my two brothers. We've been blessed by this great country, and it's given us tremendous opportunity. And so part of what we see is that opportunity, right? That this is a place, that gives people opportunity, and that's the story of America, right? Every generation has a different story, and one of the great things about our country, at least the way I see it, is that American culture is not static. It keeps getting better because we nourish ourselves with the new Americans that come. Whether you're Irish, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Eastern European, whether you're African, you come and you add that little bit. And what most people do as immigrants is that they hold on to the precious good things that their culture offers, and then they find the wonder of America, and they glom onto that. And after 2 or 3 generations, well, you have a parade, maybe a little bit of drinking involved, but we're all Americans. And if there's something that America does better than any other country in the world, is create Americans, right? I'm an American, right? And I'm proud of it. My father was born in Cuba, and I think if you asked him, what are you? He'd say, I'm an American. And that is because our society is open, it's infused with new ideas. You look at a place like Italy, which has an immigration that travels around the world, finding people to live in Italy because they're losing people. Well, in America, we're not losing people. We have people who want to renew every day the spirit of that dream. They come with it right there, and that's good for us. It's good for our country. It's sad it'll be the day when we have to go out and find people to join us. People they knock on our door, they want to come in, and we've got to have a system that's orderly, responsible, that we know who's coming in, and we know why they're coming in, and make sure that it's for the good of the country.
And I want to pose this next one for both of you, which is, I want you to restore the American people's faith a little bit. So we've been through a bruising time with the shutdown, and obviously the ACA is on everybody's mind, and immigration reform kind of feels like one of those issues that it's kind of here, and then it goes away, and it's here again, and there's lots of other priorities. And so, you spoke to this a little bit, Congressman Denham, but give the American people some faith that we're going to get this done this time, and why now?
Well, again, I think it has to happen now. We have our challenges next year, and as we saw under the previous administration, I believe that President Bush really wanted to get strong immigration reform done, and then we had 9/11. At the beginning of this year, we had Syria, we've had the shutdown, we've had some major issues. We can't allow this to get sidetracked or sidelined and push it off for another 4 years or 8 years or wait until there's another administration. We've got to get it done now. It's affecting too much of our society. It's having too big of an impact on our communities, and we really owe it to our country to solve this once and for all. And I think we've got a short time frame this year, and I'm confident we're going to do it. I think, last week Joe was getting a lot of questions. You're going to be able to get any Republicans on this. He and I have been talking for quite some time. I signed on Monday. We had another Republican sign on Tuesday. We had another one sign on today. We are moving, but we need the American public to get engaged as well and help us to move. We need to have a target list of Republicans and Democrats and ask them, if you're not on this bill, why not? What don't you like in it? It's fine not to like it, but express that concern. Maybe there's something we can fix. But just saying no and ignoring the fact that we have an immigration, a broken system here is not acceptable.
Yeah, let me give you for a broader historic understanding. For years we're able to take the very best and the brightest, and we have a lot of problems with education in our country. Right? We say we've got to improve our elementary and our secondary education, but we have the best postgraduate education system in the world by far. You know, its depth, its breadth, its width. In the United States today, we have 100, I think, and 10,000 Chinese studying here. We have another 90,000 Indians studying here. We have 70,000 South Koreans studying here. And you know, if Jeff meets one of these guys and they're studying, and they're in a particular area, and he wants to hire him for his farm, it's almost impossible, right? As a subject matter expert, he finds a guy who can do something that he needs. And today's immigration system, it's broken. We can't fix it. Here's what I'll tell you. Of the 11 million people that are here undocumented, over 5 million of them have documents waiting for them in an embassy. But because of some rule, some process, they can't adjust, so they stay outside. They stay in the United States because they can't get back in. These are little problems that could be fixed, and this is the time to do it. These little things can be fixed, make us more productive, make us better. Jeff's a much younger man than I am, but for me to be able to retire in the next 15 years, I not only need these 11 million to be legalized, but there are probably another 7 million in those 20 years, through one form or another, that have to find a pathway forward so that our Social Security system can hold itself, so that Medicare and Medicaid work. And so these are all things that happen, and that's why I think when Jeff says, if you've got a solution, let us know about it, because part of the problem with comprehensive immigration reform is you can say piecemeal, but if you touch this thing, it affects us over here. If you touch that thing, it affects over here. And so we need something comprehensive, and this is as good a stroke as we came forward. You know, I've described this before. It's like baseball arbitration, right? I didn't get the bill I wanted, but I got to draw a bill close enough so that most people can go with it. And us getting to 84 Democrats or 85 Democrats was hard, because a lot of the guys on the left thought this bill was too conservative, and they said, look, if I'm going to write a bill, let me write a Democratic bill. But we said, look, if we write a Democratic bill, I don't think we can get a Jeff Denham. I can't get a Valadero. I can't get an Ileana Ross-Lane, and the many other folks that we're talking to. And I want to thank Jeff today. When we were talking to Congressman Valadero, we've been talking for a while. You know, he sat there with me. He sort of prodded him and pushed him on. And I appreciate that, because, you know, people they got to be asked to do the right thing. They know what the right thing is, but you've got to create a consensus. So I want to give you hope. This process isn't supposed to be easy, but right now it's working, and hopefully we can keep people coming aboard.
And it's a team process. We're going to continue to work together to get more people signed up. But that's what we're asking the American public too, is also to engage your member of Congress and ask them about the bill. Ask them what they're doing to support immigration reform.
Thank you, Congressman. We applaud your effort in supporting this and bipartisan support. Many in our community appreciate that, because we feel like this shouldn't be a partisan issue. But I have a question from our Sensible Politics audience. And someone says the CBO report says wages will decline and unemployment will rise for the first 10 years as a result of the Senate bill. Is that a good idea? Why do you think it is a good idea? Will this happen?
Well, I haven't read that part of the CBO report, but I did read the Chamber of Commerce report, and they tend not to like unemployment. They tend to like an aggressive growth. And the Chamber of Commerce, which isn't a liberal group, put out I think it's a 60, 70-page report that just came out last week, which I think looks at all the sides of this. It increases revenue for the government. It increases the opportunity of jobs. Here's what we know. When Ronald Reagan, great American president, Republican, passed immigration reform, salaries went up for the middle class and working class for 5 years in a row. And that's a fact. When you're not competing with people who aren't in the system, when you're not competing with people who aren't paying taxes, we have more revenue, more opportunity, and there are good numbers that show the number of businesses that are created simply by moving forward on this.
Congressman Garcia, here's a question specifically for you. What was the process your grandmother and father took to citizenship?
So in the 60s, when Cubans came here, they had a process of parole, right? And they probably qualified as refugees, and they were paroled in. There was, by 1967, a neighborhood of 200,000 Cubans that were living in the United States that had been paroled in. Under immigration law, to be able to adjust your status, you have to leave and enter with a visa that gives you a specific status. Because they couldn't return to Cuba since they were refugees, they passed something called the Cuban Adjustment Act. And the Cuban Adjustment Act basically says if you make a legal entry into the United States after a year and a day of residence in the United States, you're allowed to adjust your status to residency, and that's precisely, I think, how they did it.
And what other ways can we reach out other than calling our representatives to ask them to support this, particularly those of us who live in Republican-heavy districts?
Well, one of the wonderful things I've seen is when Jeff announced, watching, and it's sort of I'm not a big Twitter guy, as I'm in my generation is a little bit, but I've learned I wanted to find out what was going on with Jeff, so I was Twittering. I was pulling up his Twitter handle, and it was wonderful to watch all the people just thanking Jeff. I mean, and you know, it inspired me a bit. You know, I thanked him too, but I watch people from all over the country sort of touch him and say thank you. And I invite people to do it to Congressman Valadeo, who joined us today, or Ileana, who was on this yesterday. But invite your congressman to also do this, because I think it makes sense. And you know, I don't want to reveal too much, but you know, when Jeff said, I was glad, you know, I'm glad I did it, you know, it's also freeing, because it then lets you're not worrying about your politics, you can start worrying about other people and think about who else in this great process we need to move forward.
Yeah, and for me, you know, it's been frustrating for quite some time. I want to show what I'm for. You know, there have been a lot of different bills out there, and everybody's kind of waiting back and saying, well, I don't like that one, I don't like that one. We need to show what we're for. We need to show the American people what we're for, what we're willing to fight for. And having bipartisan support on this, and having the two of us actually go and talking to members together has been helpful. And now we're asking the American public to do the same thing. You know, if you're in one of those heavy Republican areas, go talk to we want those Republican members to be on board. But if you're not in an area where, you know, hopefully your members already signed on, I would say thank them. But after that, then start talking to your friends and have them call, and you call yourself the other members. So I get a lot of calls and Twitter feeds and Facebook notices that all, you know, they all come from around the nation, and they're encouraging as well.
This is from our audience, Brian Dillard. How do you feel your constituents in your district feel about your stance on the issue? And do you have a lot of support from both sides of the aisle in your constituents?
Well, look, I think one of the most pleasant surprises I got when I did this before getting Jeff on board, right? You know, I particularly like the fact that, you know, Jeff's like central casting. You know, this farmer, tall guy, you know, blonde, blue-eyed, and you know, sort of a piece of American apple pie, right? So he's getting him, but getting Ileana Ross-Layton from my district, right? So Ileana and I share a huge common border. My district is in terms of voters, 62% Hispanic. Ileana's is more or less the same thing. So we have very similar demographics, and I think you know, Ileana has been a tireless fighter on immigration. You know, this is something that's common to a lot of us. So in my district, this is pretty important. And if you look at my district, I represent from Key West to part of my district called Westchester, which is the suburbs of Miami. And most of the suburbs of Miami are made up of working class and middle class families who are, you know, buying the little piece of the American dream, whether it's an apartment or a house in the suburbs to have better schools and the like. And of course they get this. They get this because many of them have gone through some of this, and no one knows how broken the immigration system is than someone who's been through it. And you know, when I first got out of college, what I did for a living was run a refugee processing, and I traveled all over the world. First time I ever got to travel, because we weren't a wealthy family, and I did it doing God's work, which is processing refugees.
Wow. Okay.
With that, Congressman, we want to thank you so much for your time. We know you're very, very busy. We, as a policy-minded community, as a sensible community, we really applaud your efforts, and it's just really remarkable to see you on the same stage and showing that bipartisanship is possible.